listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifestor Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Stay with us for the next hour and let us help you experience a higher vibration and a new state of mind. For those of you who don't know me, I awakened with wolves. When I met a wolf, it talked to me the same as I'm talking now in my mind or my heart. And they taught me to read the energy of the heart. And as a result, I can intuitively hear plants, animals, and people. I became an intuitive healer and writer as a result. And you can find me at onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com. Now, everyone is going to be excited about this topic because it is about creating money and creating unlimited money, but in a very unique way. So first, let me introduce you to our guest, Sarah McCrum. Welcome, Sarah. So glad to have you here. She's here all the way from Australia. Yeah. Big time difference, and we're really grateful to have her. So let me read you her bio. I can't remember those, even though I have a good memory, and then we'll go from there. Most people experience fear and stress around money, and they're not aware how much it's influencing their business, financial, and family life, and their impact in the world. Sarah McCrum is a leading money consciousness coach who has transformed the lives of over 20,000 business owners and families. She offers a practical, relaxed approach to transforming your relationship with money based on her book, Love Money, Money Loves You. Her courses enable business owners, leaders, and investors to combine true wealth with true well-being. So let me tell you a little bit about the book because I think it's important. It shows you how to grow a relationship with money that aligns with your personal true values. She has a completely different way of explaining money, which I really like because I think it's in synchronicity with who we really are. So part of it is what's all manifestation and real inner work is a journey and teaches you about yourself. So Sarah said that after 2 decades of study of life energy with 2 Chinese masters, and just a few weeks after the failure of her business in London, she was asked, "What does money want to say to you?" She started writing a response and found words coming out of her pen that were her own. They started with, "I would like to tell you to love me." So she wanted to discover more about the source of the message and continued writing for 3 months. So she gives us advice from money herself. It takes us into the world with what's happening today and how all of us who are working with our inner self or working with awakening can come to a new level of understanding. This simple, clear language of love money, money loves you cuts through scarcity and fear-based thinking about money, and I would say about the future. Whether you're wealthy, poor, in between, it shows you how to move toward natural abundance and generosity. Okay, so I wanted to start with what I really like about this book is that if you allow it to come in, it takes you into your inner self, a part of the self that's connected to the universe. So tell us about that and how you figured out how to word all of this.
Well, really, I didn't figure it out. You know, what you described, that the words came out of my pen, that really was true. This was when I was writing, it was literally like the energy of money was writing through me. Now, many years later, I've had lots more experience and I can talk about what I've experienced in relation to it and how I've seen other people grow when they understand what this message about money really is. What does it mean when it says, when money says to us, I would like to tell you to love me? What does that even mean? Because, you know, usually we think loving money is probably not a very good thing to do. But so I think the point was, my initiation into this was that it came directly from, I would say, the universe energy that is about the delivery. It's about the manifestation of physical reality. So it's an incredibly powerful energy that we're talking to. It's not really just about notes and coins and transactions and contracts and things. It's actually about the energy that responds to our wishes, our desires, whatever word you want to use, and delivers. It's, you know, it's the kind of genie in the bottle that's real, rather than the part of a myth.
Right. And you know, that was one of the first things that Wolves told me, was that we all had this universal desire within us to create, and things happen in our life or we don't believe in ourselves. And that's something that we all have to move through to become a creator. And you're saying the same thing with a different focus.
Yeah, 100%. That's and I think you talked about it being a journey. That's really the point. It's very interesting when people hear unlimited money. The message was over and over again, money itself is unlimited. And then we sort of imagine, oh, you know, I could have infinite money. It's more that there's a direction. We never need to think, for example, that if I have more money, somehow that creates scarcity somewhere else. Actually, making money is about creating value. It's about bringing, if you do it the right way, I think the way that really feels good, it's about bringing more goodness into the world, and it creates opportunities for other people. So we have some very weird thinking about money because of the way we treat it at the moment. But really, yeah, we're tapping into the energy of creation. I always say money is really the energy of manifestation, materialization, and creation. And they're really different layers. Manifestation being the easiest, you know, I want something and then it's delivered. That's easy. Working in the depths of creation is a much deeper level, takes I think much more inner work to be able to do that. But we slowly approach that if we get very, very engaged with this work.
I like how you're saying that. Okay, you have 4 fascinating steps to create more money. Can we talk about those? I know the first one is, and people are going to say, well, how will I do that? And that is forgetting what we've learned and releasing stress and fear.
Yes, it's really interesting because the 4th chapter of the book is called A New Blueprint for Making Money. And yeah, the very first instruction is forget everything you think you know about money. And that's like, well, that's ridiculous. How can I do that? Especially if you're in business, for example, or you're working in a business. And so you know how you make money. You get a salary, or you have your revenue streams, you have your courses, or your whatever it is that you sell. It's like, well, I know how to do that. And it took me a while also. Like, when I first started, I had no money. My business had just failed. I had nothing. I had nothing to lose whatsoever. So it was actually very easy to forget everything I knew, because everything I knew hadn't worked. It had got me to a very, very difficult position. But once you've got something happening, it's harder. But what I've learned, and I'm sure you'll relate to this very easily, Julia, is that in that moment, which is now, where I need to open myself up to something new, whether it's just some more money that I need at a very practical level than I've got right now, or whether it's that I need a new idea for making money, whatever it is, I have to recognize that whatever I've known so far has got me here to where I need something else. And so it is actually a new moment, it's a new experience. And therefore, if I let go of everything I think I know, I can open to what's going to bring me the new energy, which will bring the new level of money or wealth or opportunity or idea or whatever it is that's actually going to work. And if you stick with what you know, what I think of as your old energy, you're going to get what you've got. It's just really simple, but it's confronting first. So it's, like people teach you to empty your mind or to let go or all of these things. It's really like that's just recognizing if I want to go to the next level, I've got to become something more than I am now. And I probably don't know how to do that.
Well, that happened when I quit my job. I started making more money writing and doing readings than I was with my job. But when I quit my job, I became afraid about money. And
That's
so
what
I
happens
started,
so
yeah.
often. Yeah.
So I started thinking about it, and I had wolves around me, and they kept telling me, see it working, decide it will work, think about what abundance feels like. And someone who became a very good friend wanted me to work in her chiropractic clinic doing readings. And so I was doing animal readings. Obviously, that was easy after the wolves. And the interesting thing was that when I cleared the animal, everybody who was having adjustments, their spines were straightening out more than they normally would. So she kept me on, and I think in like 6 weeks, I was completely booked.
Well, you're a very exceptional story, and it's a wonderful story to hear that because lots of people struggle with that kind of transition for the very reason you mentioned, that people get afraid, they get worried about scarcity, and they start manifesting scarcity, and it's a can be a very challenging transition. So it's really nice to hear stories of people who've done that
Right.
so
And then
smoothly.
they all wanted a class, so I started teaching classes.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
So it does happen for those of you who are listening. I'm not saying quit your job and become afraid, but I'm saying why not start visualizing what you want to flow into your life? And that's how you release the stress and fear, I think. As I've done it
That's right.
before, I can do it again.
I think the big problem a lot of people get into, especially these days, is they spend a lot of time thinking about what's blocking them and what's wrong and what's missing and what have I not got. And that's where, you can literally manifest in a way more and more and more blockages. There is always, if you think about anything that flows, there are always blockages too. If you think of the ocean, there are rocks and mountains on the bottom of the ocean. They're kind of like a blockage to the flow of the water, but that's part of nature. Every river has stones and pebbles and trees and tree trunks and things blocking the flow, but we don't think, oh my goodness, this is something terrible. Sometimes we have to unblock it, but most of the time it's just normal life. So when you get obsessed with blockages, it's like you're trying to take out all the stones of the river. And actually, the stones belong in there too. And I'm not saying you need to be blocked. What I'm saying is when you focus on who you want to become, what you want to experience, just like you said, blockages will tend to move out of the way, and then occasionally you'll need a special technique. There are some types of blockages that don't move very easily and do need to be dealt with, but an awful lot of them will, it's just like the old energy will move itself out as long as you stay focused on the new energy. So I think a lot of what we're learning these days is to focus on the wrong end. It's like, go and look at what's wrong, as if that's going to make things right. It's not. It's like, go and look at what's working beautifully. Go and look at what you want more of. Go and look at what you can grow. And you will figure out, or your system will figure out how to get rid of what's not working. So there's a much easier, much more natural way. And that's what you tapped into very directly there. And I think a lot of people miss.
Yeah. Okay, so step 2 is the fun one. It's opening your heart to the universe, or opening up to receive more money. And opening your heart is just a beautiful, wonderful thing, period.
Yeah, of course, it connects us with love, which is our fundamental nature. We're made out of love, actually. That's the fundamental energy of life. So it taps us into who we are very directly. But what I learned about money more than anything is that it is an energy of love. It's an energy that flows. It comes from love. It responds to love. It's an expression of love. And so if you want more money, if you want to be more engaged with money in a way that is fulfilling to you, to try to do that through being very heady in your mind all the time, or to try to do it by being contracted and nervous and worried and stressed. It's not the language, the natural language of money. And look, lots of people will say to me, yeah, but people do terrible things with money. Yes, that's true, but that's people making terrible decisions. That's not actually money. When you get familiar with the energy of money, when you start to feel it, you feel how it really comes alive when there is love and goodness and a desire to contribute for the well-being of other people, which is what a business really is. You're contributing things that other people really value. And if the value exchange is there, money loves that. It's like, there's this enlivening that happens, which is beautiful to feel.
Mm-hmm. And I think that in there, one theory that I've always had is that the people who have the higher vibrations or the higher love frequency, in a sense, we have to manifest the abundance for the world to change. When it travels
Absolutely.
through that, it will change. Being greedy, having everything in the world will no longer be popular. It will be, are you using it with love? Are you using it with care? Are you being imaginative?
Yeah, and does it make you feel good?
Yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of people make money and they don't feel good, and that in the end, that price is so great, because if you don't feel good, you don't feel good with your family, you don't feel good with your kids or your grandkids, you don't feel good with the people in your business or your way of making money. And that actually is not how we want to be. Of course, people accept it and they live with it and they suffer from it a lot. But if you can, I think the problem is that people haven't been able to see a way of combining purpose or joy with money. When you see that there is a way, and when people become very good examples of that, then other people want to be like them. And that's where we are now. I think we're in that stage now of examples coming through of people who can combine these things in a really meaningful, powerful way that does make a difference. It's not hidden, down a dark hole somewhere so nobody can see it. There's a really open sharing of new ways of making money. And I agree with you, that is what will carve the path, if you like, into a better economy.
All of you who want
future.
to be pioneers, soak this up, get to work.
Totally. Yes, I'm with you.
And we need pioneers. Everyone says, I want a new age. I want everything to be wonderful. Okay, here's another way to do it.
Yeah. And we need to create it, because you have to remember that the people who've created what's not wonderful, they've done the best they can with what they know, and we don't like it. Okay, so who's going to change it?
Right. It only comes to you.
Yeah, you can't expect them to change it in the way that you want, especially when they clearly don't understand it. So it's up to us to, it's a tremendous incentive to get strong, to get powerful in a healthy way, to learn as much as you can about money in a really healthy, valuable way. It's like given me an enormous amount of courage, actually, to learn things that I would never have dreamt that I would be even thinking about in my life.
One way that I think about it, because I felt this, I'd had a lifetime of fear about wolves, and then here they are in my dreams, in my life, and I'm falling in love with them. And I remember it took me so much courage in the beginning to be alone in the pen with 9 or 10 wolves. Then it took a lot of courage to leave my job and make it work. But then I think about children, if you take them to an amusement park, what they really like is to have things that scare them, and they're able to overcome that. And I think this is some subtle part of it. Sometimes it's just speaking up if you haven't done that your whole life. But we're in a conversation with money, and we might as well all be making lots of money while we're going on this journey of greater spiritual awareness.
Well, of course, because then we're creating more impact. We're sharing more. That's an act of generosity. That's a contribution to society. That's what also gives us a sense of meaning and fulfillment. So it ticks every box. That's the thing. If you do it and you don't sacrifice yourself and your values and what you care about and the people around you, if you do it in a way that is close to who you are, then it ticks the boxes of what we long for as human beings. Like, I actually learned to experience joy by opening up my relationship with money. I would never have expected that. Nobody
Tell
thinks,
us
oh,
more
joy and
about
money.
that. Yeah, tell us more about that.
It's such a beautiful energy. And when you become familiar with it, you become friends with it. And then you realize how it connects people together. And you realize how you can actually use money and use this energy, the energy of money, the energy of manifestation, materialization, to create whatever you want, actually. And then it calls you to really ask yourself, what do I want? What do I stand for? What is important in my life? And that can be very personal things, like where you want to live, and it can be very collective type of things, the contribution you want to make to society. But it calls you to stand in your own ground and be strong and be creative. And then you feel more alive. And when you feel more alive, you feel more joy. It's like the joy of life is rising up inside you, because you're actually tapping into life itself. You're tapping into the power of life in a way that flows with life, not against it. And so many of the ways that people traditionally make money, there's so much force and there's so much control. And so it's actually going against life. And then people have to work really hard to fight that force. And it's exhausting. And so suddenly you find a way where it doesn't have to be like that. Of course, you start to feel joy.
Right. And I think always say in classes on manifestation, if you will truly just take 10 or 15 minutes a day to focus on what you want to create and imagine that you're there and you're doing it, it will lift your spiritual awareness, because it's part of what we came here to do. You
Absolutely.
can't do it without that.
And it connects you with your evolution, if you like. It connects you with your future, where you're going. Can you imagine if you're traveling somewhere and you're just looking out of the back of the car all the time? That's not going to work. And actually, that's how a lot of people live. And you can remember when you were a child and you were going somewhere and you were going on a trip and you're so excited about going there. That's life. Like, we come here to have all these experiences, and there's a certain excitement and joy in our soul at being able to have the experiences, including the difficult ones. It's not only we're just here to be love and light and all of this, but actually the difficult ones and the very challenging and dark experiences. There's so much beauty that exists in there. And so we're here for all of it. And I think that's very important to recognize, because then we don't need to be so afraid of life. We can actually really embrace life and all the different colors in it. I'm just looking at the background you have. And can you imagine if it was only light purple and all the other shades weren't there? It would just be so boring.
Mm-hmm. And so another thing you talk about, which I love, is that having dreams and dreaming of a better life is so important.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because sometimes people get afraid of dreaming because they're afraid that their dreams won't come true. And I think you have to overcome that a bit, because if you always stop yourself, like I did when I was younger, I stopped being even aware of what I wanted because I was so afraid that it wasn't going to happen, because that was my experience. Typically, I'd want things and they didn't happen, but I was not in touch with this energy. But actually, I had to, little by little, and I wouldn't go too quickly with this, little by little, open up my desires and then open up my dreams. And a lot of what that was for me was saying yes to things that I wanted that seemed impossible. Mm-hmm. So perhaps because I'm quite intuitive, I channeled this book essentially. So I do get these experiences that many other people get, where you feel called maybe to do something bigger and you don't know how to do it. And it's very easy in that moment to say, who am I to do that? There are other people who are much better at it. And in some cases, for me, it's been things that I really don't know much about and I really am not good at. And I've had to learn to say yes, even so. And that's enabled me to find other people who are good at things, who, and we can work together. And then what I did is another mistake. It's like, oh, all these people are really amazing. They're so brilliant. They're so clever. They know so much. They know how to do financial things and business things. And then I shrink myself again. It's like, I'm just, so we have these ways to shut ourselves down and shrink ourselves back. And every time I step in and say, no, I'm a really key part of this as well, and I need to stand in my dream and my vision, that's where I find that everything starts to work really well.
Perfectly said. I love that. And I do think that some of those things that we go through as in children or as young adults are karma or past life things that come up within us. But when we decide that we will stay with our vision, we will keep going, it eventually flips a switch so that you start going again in the direction in which you belong. Or the
Yes.
universe does it.
As somebody who had a lot of karma, which is why I wasn't able to manifest things when I was younger, I've had to do a huge amount of work on that. But it's incredibly rewarding, because it is true that if you really face all of that stuff that is getting in your way and stopping you and holding you back and all of that, you really face it and keep facing forward, people will show up who know how to solve these problems. I was taught how to release karma in the most powerful way, and I would never have expected it. I would never have asked for it. I didn't know it was a problem, but he showed up when I needed it.
Mm-hmm. And that will continue to happen. So it's just about time for us to go to break, if we can stop talking for a second, because it's such a fascinating subject. I've been talking with Sarah McCrum about her book, Love Money, Money Loves You, which is a great book. And it's about creating money with new ideas and concepts for the future, not the past. And I'm going to try it, and I hope you will all join me with it. When we come back, you'll learn a lot more about welcoming a flow of unlimited money into your life. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin at OneTrueSelf.com. I'm talking with Sarah McCrum about her book, Love Money, Money Loves You. You really want to listen, because this is about using manifestation in the inner self to create the abundance, the happiness, and the wealth that you want in your life. Not only that, but she's sharing concepts that will probably become common in the future. Right now, they're unique and new. So stay with us and let us help you create wealth in your life. So, Sarah, one question everyone is still going to come back to is, and this is not anything new, this is the last couple thousand years. People started thinking that money was bad, but I'm assuming that's just because of what people did with it. But religion, being a monk, being a nun, being a priestess, which many of us have been in past lives, really discouraged it. So how do people recover from that kind of old mentality? How do they break through that?
Yeah, this is I think the deepest challenge of all, actually, because once money gets kind of confused with badness at a spiritual level, that these are things that sometimes we learn when we're too young to discern anything, really. And so they get into our system. These messages get lodged in our energy field, and we don't even know they're there, but then we just feel like I have to reject money because it's going to corrupt my purity or my goodness or my virtue. Or I need to make money because I have a family, I have responsibilities, but I'm obviously a bad person. And a lot of wealthy people at a subtle level just feel like they've compromised their soul, but they had to do it. And that's a very uncomfortable place for somebody to be. So I think it's first of all important to recognize how prevalent this is, regardless of whether you grew up religious or not. Our modern Western societies have very strong religious underpinnings. Eastern societies have very strong spiritual underpinnings, and almost all of those basically say it's better to be poor.
Right.
It's more virtuous to be poor. So how do we overcome that? Actually, my book is really, it has the answers to this. When you start to realize, it says, money says, I want to tell you to love me. And the first chapter, it says, don't wait, just take me, I will love you. So it's speaking the language of love. Now, if you are religious or you're aware of religion, think about it. if you think about Christianity, they say God is love. They also say God is everything. So I figured out very quickly, because I did grow up, I was in Christian schools. My grandmother was a very strong Christian. It's like, well, if God's everything, God's money. And so for the first time, it actually made sense with that kind of subtle programming I had when I was young about God, as well. If God is everything and God is love, then God is money and money is love. It's like, well, this is actually just telling the truth from that perspective that has somehow got missed in all those religious teachings. And it is very interesting because we have to point out that, you know, the churches are very, very wealthy, and some of those Buddhist and those temples have gold all over their roofs in the East.
They're always after money.
Well, yes. And so it can't, you know, so we have to look at these things. And what I find is when people, even I have a little video of the first chapter of the book on my YouTube channel. When people watch that video or they read the first chapter, very often they experience a kind of, okay, for the first time, money feels safe, because it feels more true to me. And especially sensitive people, very intuitive or empathic people, they feel it immediately, and they know they know somatically, this is more true than what I learned when I was younger. Look, because I don't think you can just eliminate that conflict by thinking about it. I think you actually need to learn a better version of what money is that makes more sense to you, so that it gradually replaces your old thinking. The other thing that makes an enormous difference is proving it. When you start to see that when you love money, when you allow yourself to receive it with generosity and you allow yourself to use it generously, which doesn't mean you have to give it all away. There are many different ways of using money. When you start to do that and it feels good and it works better and it doesn't require you to give up your health and well-being or your family, or it enables you.
You're not sacrificing for it.
You're not sacrificing for it. Look, yes, there are times when we have to work hard. There are times when these are choices we make. They're not sacrifices we make. If we know that we're making the choice, and I want to do this, and then you start to prove to yourself that this version of money, so to speak, this understanding of money is better. It's actually better because it works. I'm not going to say it's an overnight miracle for most people, because there is quite a lot to learn. There's it's just a change that we need to make from
manifestation is not something you learn overnight. You have to keep working.
Also, yeah. You can manifest things overnight. And we often, what I find, and that's beautiful, and I'm sure you find that too, is when you're learning this, you get results all along the way. So you also don't have to become a master before it works. It starts working on the first day, but it has its ups and downs as well, like any learning. And that's the beauty of it. You can get results very quickly, but the more dedicated you are to really growing in this understanding and this way of doing things, the more rewarding it becomes.
When I first started reading your book, I thought this is a different way of defining the properties of the energy of money. You're rewriting how we should perceive.
That's right. I'm rewriting our understanding of money. I'm rewriting, literally, it's like the coding of money that we have in our systems at the moment is very conflicted, and we can feel that. And that's why people react so much to money. It's also why people behave so badly. Because think about it, somebody who's very corrupt or who's abusing people through money, do you really think that they have that love, that unconditional love in their heart around money or around life? Of course they don't. They're doing it from fear and pain and other very challenging experiences from the inside that they may not even be aware of. When you come to know money this way, the last thing in the world you want to do is go and abuse people with it or hurt people with it or be greedy about it, because you know that there's always more money. You know it's part of the creative flow of life. Every time we have a situation, I had last week where the car mechanic came out, and for the first time our car had some things that needed to be done, and he said, oh, you're going to have to pay, it's going to be $4,000, and normally we just have it serviced. And I always just think, well, that's why I make money, so I can pay for things like this. There's more money coming. And I've been in situations like all of us where bills come, or I've been at airports where I was flying across the world and my ticket wasn't valid and I had to buy another one, triple the price in the moment. And I'm so grateful because I'm able to do that, because I really got to grips with my relationship with money and decided not to stay in that place where I was just completely living on the edge all the time, which is what I learned from a kind of spiritual approach.
I think one thing everyone needs to remember is anytime you have a big expense and you have the money in your bank account to cover it, say, thank you, universe. I'm so grateful that I can pay for this.
Yeah.
In that moment of gratitude, if it's heartfelt, it will come back pretty quickly.
Yes, and I always say there's more. Whenever I have to pay for something that feels a little uncomfortable, I always say there's more money coming.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I just feel it's like, oh, it's okay. This is what money's for.
Right. Okay, you say something really important about work. Now, I love my work. I love what I do. And I don't know if this works for other people, but when I want to work more, I start saying to myself, I love to work. I love to work. I love to help people. I love it that I get to see the universe from other people's point of view, because I've become them when I'm doing a session, because I'm reading their inner self, which is so cool. But I don't think most people do that. I think most people say, I need more work, not I love my work.
Yes, and a lot of people say, I hate my work, or I'm just waiting to get another job that I really like, or there are so many variations of what we think about it. It's actually very interesting at the moment because with all the development of AI, many people are facing the possibility that they won't have work. And the biggest crisis of that might well not be the financial one, because we will always find ways. We'll always find ways as human beings. We're incredibly resilient. Look how we manage in disasters. But it's the fact that then you don't have work. I think it's really important that we recognize that work with a capital W, if you like, is a very important part of creating meaning for human beings, because it's where we actually contribute with generosity to other people. And we're rewarded for that because of the generosity. When you go and work in a company, you're giving your time and your energy and hopefully your love too. And yes, you get money, but you don't only get money, you get meaning, you get an opportunity to grow yourself, you get an opportunity to share your skills, you get much more than you probably imagine. And I think it's time for us to recognize that there is dignity and beauty in work. And if you lose your job, find your way to make a contribution to others, because when we're exchanging value, our system works, whether it's done in traditional ways or non-traditional ways. The system between human beings works. And when we shrink into fear and stress and trying to hold on to everything for ourselves because we're so afraid, our whole economy falls apart. So I think this is a very important topic for today's world.
Yeah. And so if you're worried about that right now, why don't you change it to, there will always be work for me. I do things that are really special. People need me in their lives. People need me to work. But it is interesting to me that everyone talks to me about, and when I have enough money, I won't work anymore. They said, wouldn't you quit your job? I'm like, no.
I know, I'm the same. I always say, I'll work till the day I die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
that's a culture, isn't it? People are taught to do a job which you probably don't like. You do a job to make money so you can retire. And it's a very strong culture in Australia. And the dream is to retire at 55 with a couple of investment properties and a place on the beach and to surf for the rest of your life. But you know what? I live in one of the places where a lot of people come and do that, and they get very, very, very bored because they've spent all their life working with people, and suddenly there's nothing. There's just a golf course and an ocean and some coffee, some cafes. It's like, that's not enough. So I'm also very much in favor of older people contributing. I think it's really important that you don't give up on who you are just because you're 60.
Right. And that's important too. So I'm thinking about this. You're saying that we're part of a wave of communication and active collaboration with human beings. And that's what you say in your book. And they're
That's
asking,
what money is saying to us.
yeah, open up your awareness and discover the joy of working consciously to achieve your dreams. And that's your wave or their wave of seeing the future, right?
Yes, I mean, it's very remarkable when you start to look at what's really happening in the world of money, because the world of money is not, I used to think of it as just, it's energy. I knew it was energy, and I sort of saw energy kind of like clouds or movement. But then I realized that energy actually is in, multi-dimensional or other dimensional beings. There's a real system there. It's like a huge bureaucracy in a way. So if I say, oh, I really want this, I would love that, that's like me sending a message that gets put in a ledger, so to speak, and has to be fulfilled. But if I say I'd really love that, but I can't afford it, that ledger has to kind of go on the shelf because I'm saying, yes, I want it, but I can't afford it. So they can't deliver it if I'm saying I can't afford it. In fact, they may have to deliver me not being able to afford it. So if I can afford it, they might send me a few bills as well, which they don't like very much, but they have to do that. So it's a very alive system. And it's like you have a team. We all have a team in the multidimensional world that is literally listening to us, to our every thought and feeling. That's manifestation. It's an incredibly responsive system. And the beauty of it is their dedication to their job. They're much more dutiful than we are. We're very wild, I think. And, it's like, I just want to do whatever I want, and I'll ignore the rules of nature and life and just,
They're probably thinking that they got a lot of wild children.
I think it's very much like that, very unruly. But they have to follow the rules. And the problem with that for them is that if you are manifesting what you don't want, by focusing, for example, on what you don't want, they have to help you get that. They have to help you get what you don't want until you switch.
I'm going to interrupt and say it in a very clear way. I had a client and she said, what am I going to do? They're not sending my passport. She had dual citizenship. And she said, that's part of my identity. I can't live without that. I said, you're going to visualize that it's on your desk right now, and you're putting your fingers on it, and you're feeling it. And you're thinking, I'm so happy this arrived. This is the most wonderful thing. That kind of energy brings the passport. I said, with what you're saying, I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. The universe is hearing that as, I think I might want to lose it.
Yeah, and then lose my identity as well. It will have many more consequences as well. And one thing I want to say is what I've learned is that there are many different people have different ways of manifesting. So there are some people who are very good at doing it that way, like the touching, feeling, imagining it's here. That actually doesn't work for me. That if I do that, it pushes it away. So I have to do it a really different way. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because
tell us how you do it.
Yeah, some people try things and it doesn't work, and then they feel like, oh, I'm really stupid. And actually, maybe you just needed a different way. So for me, what I do is I kind of just say to money in the most throwaway way possible. It's just like, please fix this for me. Just do this. Or I'm just in conversation with people and we're just in a creative conversation. And the less energy I put into it, the better, the more natural, the more it's part of my flow. So in a way, I put energy into it by creating through conversation. But I haven't found it very easy to follow some of the instructions that I've learned, from The Secret and from those earlier manifestation techniques. And I find there are other people like that, but everybody finds their way. There's one woman I met, and for her, it was really important to be enthusiastic. Like, manifestation came from her enthusiasm, which is connected with what you're talking about. It's like a very warm energy. For me, it comes from this, it's almost like such pure trust that I barely need to do anything.
Oh, that sounds great.
And I discovered it by chance. Once I was running a retreat. I just moved into a house that was a little bit, it was more expensive than we wanted to pay. It was a rental. And it was, but we made the decision because it felt so good. And I kept getting this message, the house will bring the money, the house will bring the money. And the first weekend we were there, I suddenly realized that I didn't have enough money to pay the rent. Just the first weekend, which is crazy. And I was running a retreat and I didn't have time to do anything about it. And I sat down and it's just like, money, please just sort this. And half an hour later, somebody had put $2,000 in my bank account. They only owed me 1,000. And it was like, wow, I was so minimal in that. And it was so fast to respond. And that's what I found for me is the typical way where I get very fast results. I think because I let go of it. And probably I'm one of those people, if I focus on something, my energy starts to get a bit pushy.
Right.
But so it's all about just finding that signature. And it's the signature that works for you. We talk about people who are vision manifestors, and you're probably that, Julia. And yeah, they all talk. I've got another friend who talks exactly like you just did. He said, I just picture myself there. It's already happening. And I've got all the feelings and things. That's what he does. It's amazing.
You know, I have a reason to do it. My grandfather was blind and he used to ask me to be his eyes. So not only would I describe things, I would try to figure out how it looked to him when I described it. So that was just a childhood habit I'd already.
Well, yes, but I'm sure that was for a good reason. It was not only because your grandfather was blind. I mean, that was part of your.
I know it was part of what I was supposed to do.
Wasn't it? It was,
yeah.
Yes, part of your development.
And
Beautiful.
I loved him so much, or I couldn't have done it because it's not easy to describe all that stuff in detail.
No, and it could be very annoying for a child. So, but clearly it was your destiny, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I am going to try your easy fix. That sounds like fun.
Well, I have found that money loves to fix things. And if the instruction is, so if you do it like that, the instruction has to be crystal clear. And there's nothing in the way of receiving it because you completely forget about it afterwards. You completely leave it to the system. But you've done your bit, which is to ask and to have a kind of clear receiving system.
Yeah, I do that with phone calls and text. I'll say it's time to text now. And I know in a few hours everybody will, or I'll say it's time for anyone who wants to call me now because I don't want phone calls tonight.
Yeah.
That will just come through. Yeah.
and the key is, it's doing it and never giving up. That's the other thing. Just never give up. If it doesn't work for you one way, just find the way that it does. Notice what's working. Notice what's not working. Don't keep repeating what's not working. Experiment. It's more fun that way. And then when it starts to work, I had a client once and he got results, but his early results were probably because he was talking to me, because I know how to kind of, and I'm sure you do the same. We can kind of enhance those things for people. But one day he was sitting down to listen to an energy activation, which is something I do a lot with people. And he had cold feet and hands. And he asked the energy, he just said, please, I really want warm hands and feet. And 10 minutes later, everything was warm. And he's like, oh my goodness, I did that. It listened to me. It wasn't just me telling Sarah what I want and then it happens. It was me on my own telling the energy what I want and it happened. And from there, he paid off huge amounts of debt because he discovered his agency in creation.
Oh, that's a fabulous story. I was going to say she has a lot in there about value, which is really too complex for this conversation. But I've noticed if I'm paying more for something or I need to spend more money in a month, I can look and see. And my money goes up if it's right and it goes down if it's wrong. And I thought, well, that's an odd thing, but it's fairly consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, money. I think a healthy relationship with money is all about value. And what's interesting about that is it comes back to what do I value?
Right.
It also relates with how do I value myself? What do other people value? How do they value themselves? So values is a fascinating, and it is complex, but it's fascinating because that goes to the core of my identity, of what I stand for and who I am. But when we're in touch with our values, then I can say, well, I'm actually happy to buy this more expensive organic food, for example, because I really value that. You might not. And that's fine because, we don't all value the same things. And that's the beauty of human beings. Our values are what define our uniqueness and also our sharedness. And so when we get in touch with our values, then we know what to do with money. And then when we get in touch with other people's values as well, we know how to receive money.
Mm-hmm. And other people's values are interesting because they teach us about life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Values are everything in a way. You know, if you think about it, why are we sitting down talking to each other at the moment? Because we have something that we share in value. You like to share that. I like to share it. I like people like you because you helped. It's not so I can sell more books. It's because I really care about this stuff. I do sell more books through that, but that's actually, that just happens. What I'm interested in and what I love to do is share it. You clearly love having these conversations. So we're doing what we value and it comes together very easily. If you couldn't stand people who have spiritual views and you're only interested in hard money making, our values wouldn't align and this conversation would be very clunky.
No, and when values align, we get this huge wave of energy. Now, let's go back to the book. I think that they can get it at Amazon. They can get it on your website. And she gives away quite a bit with the book. She has a...
Yes, there are some gifts that come with it. There are some energy activations, which they activate your energy around money. So they're kind of like your practice sessions for money. There's also a special message for money that Money gave me for people who buy the book. So that's nice. There are ways that you can get familiar with the energy of money and the feeling and the presence of it.
And you offer courses, reasonably priced courses in learning how to do all the things in the book. And you even help people one-on-one if they get stuck and aren't doing it.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of one-on-one these days, but I do a lot of coaching through my courses. So there's a lot of attention. Yeah, so we have a simple course called Love Money that's all about the book. It's very simple. And then we have a big course called Wealth Streams, which is really about true wealth and how you create. So it's the whole picture, because it's not just about money, it's about how you live your life and the wealth and the richness of your life. So that's what came out of the book, is that it's not just about money. It's about who you are, your values, and the wealth of you and your life. And that's what I do through Wealth Streams.
Which is where all manifestation should be taking us, is into greater abundance, greater life, all of that.
So yes, that's what the universe really responds to that. It loves that much more than it's just like, oh, I just want this and I just want that and I just want something else. It has to deliver if you have the right approach. But it kind of comes alive and really loves it when we want to experience this abundance and the beauty of life.
Agreed. So thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it, Sarah. She's all the way from Australia, so I think she's up very early this morning. So thank you for that. And you can find me at onetrueself.com. Be sure and sign up for my newsletter. And I'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you for being with us. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin, to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you, to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.